Greetings from Snake Mountain Boatworks on Saturday, June 27, 2020. Why, you ask, are we looking at what looks like part of a transom blank? Well, that's because we are. This is the outer skin, the outer layer of the new transom that Joe and Anthony, primarily Joe in this part of it, are fabricating for a 1959 16.5 foot Lyman Runabout. Joe has, using his pattern and a series of dry fits, during which he had temporarily, as you can see from the countersinks, fastened all three elements of the new transom together. The inner skin, which is 1/4 inch mahogany ribbon cut plywood. The internal, really integrity of the transom, which is 5/4 mahogany, solid mahogany in individual boards about 10 inches wide. And this will be the outer skin. This will be finished bright. A number of you keep asking me, do we put the CPES on the wood before we stain it? Please don't do that. Please don't do that. You'll end up with a big blotchy puddle, because what CPES does is stop infiltration of moisture. Your stain will not be able to seep into the wood. So we have stained this, or I should say Joe has stained this, with a repurposing of one of Lowboat's, Lake Oswego Boat Company, Michael Mayer's many concoctions of gel stain. This is actually post-war Chris Craft mahogany, but it is a wonderful color for post-war Lymans. The post-war Chris's are browner than the pre-war Chris's. The pre-war Chris's really were really dark, almost red, maroon. The post-wars have this brown flavor. So I'm sure you've seen enough of this transom blank. So why don't we walk over there and see what else Joe and Anthony have been up to, and see why the title of this clip should be Milestones are falling, milestones are crashing. They're not just flowing into the wake, they're racing back there. Yes, what you're seeing is a new transom. A new keel. It's been roughed in. It is fabricated using clear white oak. Joe has used a silhouette tracer to make sure this joint between the gripe and the new keel, this joint right here, fits perfectly. So it still has to be sanded in for final shape. And Joe, because 18-foot strips of white oak are not the easiest things to get, Joe fabricated a very long scarf, and you can see how he did it. He's selected 3M 5200 as his adhesive. It's probably the strongest adhesive known to humankind. Well, no, it's probably not. There's probably much stronger adhesives out there somewhere, but in the marine world. Now notice that he chose to first install the aft section of the new keel, And then, let's pull this in a little bit so that you can, oh, we're in. We're in as far as Mr. Flip will allow us to get in. So Joe's approach was to first fabricate and fit, dry fit everything, make sure it's fine. And then he used an occasional fastener to fasten the aft section of the new keel. Now what we've done in the past, this is an innovation on Joe's part. What we've done in the past is to set these two pieces on a piece of very thick waste plywood and actually do what Joe's done here. We would clamp both sides, but only after we sank an initial screw. Because if you just clamp these, they're going to tend to slide apart. So he applied the 5200 to this face. With Anthony's help, put this guy in place after buttering the faces with 5200. And then he's sunk a series of screws so that this joint is probably stronger than a similar length of wood forward or aft of this scarf. So I would say keel fabrication, check. It still has to be shaped, still has to be trimmed at the back. We still face fabricating a keelson inside, and at that time we hope we'll take out the very small hog that remains. It's not going to affect her performance. She's going to be powered by a 1960 Evinrude 40 horsepower outboard. Just a wonderful, wonderful engine. You try to find one. Wait till you see it. After Fran Secor from Otago, New York, has had his way with it, it will glisten. And we've refastened where necessary, and in the process begun fairing the strakes. We use 3M Marine Premium Filler for this application. We actually butter the lower 2 or 3 inches of each strake. The next step here will be to sand with probably 180, maybe 80 to begin with, because this is just the initial coat. We'll end up with 5 or 6 so that we have it absolutely smooth. But the good news is the fasteners are fine. We still have some work between this strake, which is already begun to be faired, and the keel. We want to go through and do some refastening along here. We have some rib work that we have to do further aft, I believe, and we'll do that first and then start fairing the bottom. And it gets better. Can you believe it? It's like Christmas in June, and God knows we could use Christmas right now. Look at what we have here. That almost looks like a transom, and it is. We have the inner layer, which is ribbon cut marine mahogany plywood. We have the interlayer, which is 5/4 solid mahogany planking. And we've got just enough space to put that last outer face on, at which point we will be sanding the tails in so that they're fair to the outside of the transom. And we were quite pleased. The hull was very square. well, okay, so that's sort of a milestone. But wait a minute. What do we got here? Remember the mess? Remember the ugliness? Remember the rot? Look what we got on both sides. We chose mahogany, solid mahogany rather than plywood, because fairing this in, particularly back here where the plank has to be sanded to the point where it's fairly thin, we felt that we were risking cutting through the outer veneer of plywood. So we're using, it's actually Meranti mahogany in this case. We would never use Meranti for anything we were going to finish bright because it is so hideous. But in this application, given how hard it is, how rot resistant it is, and I'll have to say relative to real mahogany, genuine mahogany, how inexpensive it is. And I think we have a similar surprise, although it's a little dark on this side. Let's see if we can move the boat so that you can get a better view. Of course, I'll get in trouble on Monday for messing with Joe and Anthony's project. There you go. So that side, who would have thunk? I can't remember how many derogatory and desperate emails saying, oh my God, what a beautiful boat, but you will never, ever, ever be able to repair those strakes. This boat will never float again. Well, I beg to differ. This is Snake Mountain Boatworks. We preserve old boats, and in this case, we had to replace some wood, but when we do, once we've painted it, it's going to be indistinguishable from the way she presented the day she left her factory in Sandusky, Ohio. So, on that note, we will end this update on the 1959 16.5 foot Lyman Runabout. That will be powered once she's on the other side of preservation by a 1960 Evinrude 40 horsepower Lark outboard. She's gonna scoot without question. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boatworks. Stay safe, please.